You just decided to read this sentence. Or did you? Somewhere behind your eyes, a decision seemed to happen. You felt yourself choose it. But a laboratory in the 1980s found something that should not have been possible. Your brain had already made the choice before you knew about it. And the gap between the two was not small. Think about the last time you picked something. A drink at the counter. A show to watch. A word to say next in a sentence. It felt instant. It felt like you were the author, sitting somewhere behind your own eyes, pulling the trigger on your own actions. That feeling is so constant that you never question it. Why would you? It is the most intimate sense you have. The sense of being the one who decides. But your brain runs on electricity, and electricity leaves a trace. In 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet wired people's scalps to an EEG machine and asked them to do something almost embarrassingly simple. Sit in a chair. Watch a fast-moving circle a clock face. Flick your wrist whenever you feel like it. No pattern, no rule, just a free, spontaneous urge to move. Then report the exact moment you became aware of the urge, based on where the dot was on the clock. Here is the part that unsettled an entire field of science. Libet's machine picked up a spike of brain activity called the readiness potential. It builds in the motor regions of the brain right before a voluntary movement. And it appeared about half a second before people said they felt the urge to move. Half a second. Your brain was already organizing the action before you were conscious of choosing it. Sit with that for a second. Not choosing to sit with it, just noticing that you did. Libet's finding did not stay quiet. Other scientists needed to know if it was a fluke of clunky old EEG equipment or something built into how a brain works. So in 2008, a researcher named John Dylan Haynes ran a version of the experiment inside an fMRI scanner, which reads blood flow in the brain instead of surface electricity. His team asked people to press a button with either their left or right hand, whenever they wanted, and to remember the moment they decided which hand to use. Haynes found something even stranger than Libet had. Patterns in two brain regions, the frontopolar cortex and a region called the precuneus, predicted which hand a person would choose. Up to 10 seconds before the person felt like they had decided. 10 seconds is not a glitch in timing. 10 seconds is an entire private conversation your brain had without inviting you. So what is actually happening? Are you a puppet? Is the feeling of choosing just a story your brain tells you after the fact, like a press release issued once the real decision is already signed and sealed? That is the theory a psychologist named Daniel Wegner pushed further than almost anyone. Wegner argued that conscious will is not the cause of your actions at all. It is an interpretation of them. Your brain performs an action, and then a separate system inside your head builds a feeling of authorship around it, stitching cause and effect together after the fact, so the story makes sense. He called this the feeling of doing, and he spent years showing how easily it can be faked, redirected, or fooled entirely. In one of his experiments, people moved a cursor on a screen together with a hidden partner, both hands resting near the mouse. When a recorded voice played words just before the cursor stopped on a target, the participants often reported feeling like they had intended to stop it there, even when they had done nothing at all. The feeling of choosing an action can be manufactured out of nothing more than a well-timed word. That should bother you a little. It bothers most people the first time they hear it. But here is where the story gets its twist, the part almost nobody mentions in the panicked headlines about free will being dead. Libet himself did not believe his experiment killed free will. He proposed something almost the opposite. He suggested that while the urge to act begins unconsciously, you still retain a narrow window, a few hundred milliseconds, where you can veto the action before it happens. He called it free won't instead of free will. Your brain proposes. You still get to dispose. Think of your brain as a busy assistant, drafting emails on your behalf all day long, most of them small and automatic. Reach for the coffee cup. Scratch your ear. Glance at the door when it opens. Your assistant drafts these actions before you ever consciously weigh in. But you are the one holding the send button. Most drafts get approved without a second look, because most of them are harmless and habitual. But every so often, right before the message goes out, something in you catches it. Wait, don't say that. Don't do that. And you stop. That veto window is small. It might only be a fraction of a second, but it may be the entire hinge on which moral responsibility swings. Here is why any of this matters outside a laboratory in Berkeley or Berlin. You have almost certainly felt an urge you did not act on. The sharp word you didn't say to someone who hurt you. The extra drink you didn't pour. The impulsive text you started typing at midnight and deleted before sending. In each of those moments, a version of Libet's readiness potential was almost certainly already firing somewhere in your brain, already building the case for the action. And in each of those moments, something else in you looked at the draft and refused to hit send. That is not proof that you are a puppet. That is proof of the opposite. It is proof that the part of you capable of pausing, weighing, and overruling an impulse might be the most important part of who you are, even if it never gets to originate the impulse in the first place. There is a reason ancient thinkers across very different cultures kept returning to the same idea long before any EEG machine existed. Restraint, not initiation, as the real seed of character. Stoic philosophers in Rome trained themselves for years not to control their first reactions, which they considered automatic and largely out of reach, but to control what they did in the half-second after. Buddhist meditation traditions built entire disciplines around noticing an urge arise and simply not obeying it, watching a craving or an anger rise and pass, treating the noticing itself as the skill worth building. They were describing Libet's veto window 1,000 years before anyone had a word for it. So the next time you feel yourself choose something, notice the strangeness of the moment a little more closely. The urge to reach for your phone the second you feel bored. The urge to snap at someone who startled you. The urge to say yes to something you already suspect you'll regret. That urge was not born in the part of you doing the noticing. It arrived first, unannounced, built somewhere in the machinery beneath your awareness. But you were not absent from what happened next. You were the one who got to look at it and choose. You just decided to keep reading this sentence all the way to its end. Or did you? Somewhere behind your eyes, a decision seemed to happen. And for the first time, maybe you noticed the half second where it actually did.